Hello and welcome. We are going to attempt to make a new dial glass or crystal or whatever you want to call it lens for the Triad radio that we are in the process of restoring. This is supposed to be heat vacuum form plastic. It's 30 thousandths of an inch thick, or 0.8 millimeters. This is a foot square. I bought 2 of them so I can try this 8 times if I screw up the first couple. I've cut it into 6-inch squares, which are more than big enough to cover the area. This is the mold that is a match for what is on the radio. I cut that on a paper cutter. It cut very easily. And my plan is, I have a can which is glued to this backing board, and I've got a hole punched in it, and a piece of acrylic on top just to give me a perfectly smooth surface so we don't end up with ripples in the face. We have a vacuum pump over here on the edge of the bench. I can hear people now screaming, "I don't have a vacuum pump." Well, vacuum cleaner, shop vac, anything you got should work. I'm using this because it is going to be low volume and give me a better chance of controlling it. I just drilled a hole that's a snug fit for the hose in the side of the can. I'm going to tape this on the top. Now I have one made out of Lexan, and I also have one made out of birch plywood. This is only 3/16 of an inch thick, and the material on the radio is closer to 1/4 of an inch. This is 6 millimeter, which is just about 1/4 of an inch. So I'm hoping that works. The heat lamp is just to kind of preheat everything and keep it from being cold. It's kind of chilly down here. I've got a couple of space heaters going down here in the basement, but we've been having some sub-zero days here, and it's comfortable down here, but things are cool to the touch. So this is just to kind of keep everything a little bit warm. I'm going to tape this here. I'm going to drill some holes down through into the can in some strategic spots. I'm going to use my Kapton tape to put this on the top, because the Kapton tape is tolerant of very high temperatures without the adhesive failing. That should seal my vacuum. And what I'll do is warm this up, get this hot until I notice it's starting to sag a little bit, and then I'll turn on the vacuum pump. And if the tape seal breaks, I'll just put another layer of tape where it's necessary. But I'm hoping that if I warm this up, the vacuum will keep the outside flat. Even if it pulls it over the edge of this a little bit, it's fine. In fact, I could probably put a strip on one edge or both edges just to support it a little bit. I've got some more scraps of polycarbonate around here. It should pull down from the vacuum. The top should stay flat, and I hope that I can provide enough heat to let it mold down into this piece here. And I know this is going to get soft as well, but I think by the time the heat transfers to that, this will, being so thin, having so little thermal mass, this should move far before this starts to give up on me. That's my plan. So I'm going to get some stuff taped into position, and you'll be here for my hero or zero. So we'll see. Okay, everything's ready to go. I've got a series of holes drilled just at the interface of the form and the backing plate. They're 7/64, very small, 107 thousandths. Just enough to let some vacuum in under controlled conditions. Our Kapton tape is on, and those not familiar with Kapton tape, this stuff is not only temperature resistant, it's got a very tenacious adhesive. Our infrared lamp is doing a good job of preheating everything. Everything's comfortably warm now. And I'm just going to start heating this up until I see some sagging. Now I've left the backing plastic on here. I don't know if that's a good plan or a bad plan. Having never done this before, but I figured anything that protects the plastic and keeps it from getting scratched or marred. It's starting to bubble up like it's building pressure. Didn't expect that to happen. It's acting like it's doing, there's pressure in there, so I'm going to try a little vacuum. And I'm seeing some debris underneath the plastic. Looks like I didn't clean off the bottom Lexan sheet enough. Oh, it's pulling it right in. It's doing a good job of pulling it in, actually. I think we're going to end up doing this again, just to get rid of all of the particles that I can see stuck underneath it. I thought I'd clean that off pretty well, but evidently I didn't. But we'll call this our test piece. And after I'm happy with how it's formed in here, I will just leave the vacuum pump on until it cools. There, that edge pulled in. I guess I've got to be a little more aggressive with the heat. I didn't know how much to apply. Oh yeah, that's pulling it right into the corners now. Having never done this before, I think I got that corner a little too hot. It's okay, it's a learning process. I know this is usually done in an oven, but I don't have a big toaster oven or anything that I could put this in. I've got the house oven that I use for baking my paint, believe it or not. but I didn't have any practical way to get the vacuum line in there. But the top surface is staying nice and flat. And this is pulling in nicely. I have a couple of concerns. It's getting the backing plastic off after, and getting the lower plate clean enough next time, because I can see some debris in there. But that has pulled in now. It's got nice sharp corners. Okay, I'm going to let that cool with the vacuum pump running. And the reason it's on plywood on top of the Lexan, I knew the Lexan would, or the acrylic would get a little soft and want to pull in. So the plywood's just backing. That's good and toasty. Wow, can't keep my finger on it. Probably ought to turn off the heat lamp at this point. Yeah, that's pulled down very nicely. So I'm going to leave that go. I'm just going to let the pump run until that has cooled down to room temperature. Okay, that's cooled down. And we've already learned something. I need to soften or round off the edges of my mold more. I could hear air leaking and I couldn't figure out where it was leaking. I thought it was going through the side of the plywood maybe. But it has fractured the plastic here along the edge a little bit because my edges are too sharp. And I did that intentionally so that it would have a good clean edge to go down into the wood. However, I can always soften the edge on the wood a little bit on the back side. It won't be noticeable. Let's see if we can get this out of the mold. Boy, it doesn't take much to leave a dimple in the face of this. So I'm going to have to make sure next time no dust gets in there. I don't know if you can see the marks on the face here. They're pretty noticeable. And you can see where it's separated over here because the edge was just so sharp. Now the question is, can I get the backing paper off at this point? And again, this first shot was just to learn something. And I have no idea whether doing it with the backing paper on was a good idea or a bad idea. So we're going to try peeling this off and see what happens. If we have to do it without the backing or the protective paper, we will. I don't know how the heat was going to affect it. It's coming off this part of it just fine. Boy, I can see every little impression in the wood. But it appears the heat doesn't make it stick because this area got just as hot as what's down in here. But because it's because the plastic fractured, it's not coming out in one piece. But it's a pretty good facsimile of what goes in there. I think once I round these edges off, take all the sharp edges away, I think the next one's going to be successful. And I'm sure there's people who do this a lot out there laughing right now. But this is how you learn. You do an experiment. Come on, peel off. You experiment, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, you learn something and you change your process a little bit. And I thought this bubbling that I saw on the edge was due to excess heat, but it's because it was pulling down. Come on. Well, the backing will come off. There it goes. I got an edge that time. So I can get this off after. That's not a worry. I'm going to leave it on for the next one as well. And without the ripping along the edges, this would have probably come off in one piece. Beautiful. Okay. Even though this one's broken, we've learned that we can get the backing paper off after it's done. That's why I bought so much material. I knew there was going to be a learning curve here. So I'm going to fix the mold and we'll try it again. Okay, we begin round 2. And I just had a lint-free cloth here. Getting old is so much fun. Every day is an Easter egg hunt. I just had a lint-free cloth in my hands 2 seconds ago. We've got it. Plenty fun. It dawned on me, I had been particularly careful about cleaning this. The debris was likely on this piece from static charge. So I've got some static guard. And one of the smarter things I did years ago was run an airline in here from the garage into the basement. Oh, light. Stupid thing didn't shut off. It was sitting there emptying its gas out. Lint-free, 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 my friend. It was probably something stuck to the piece I was pulling in. In fact, looking at it, it's not a great surface. But it is what it is at this point. Make sure there's nothing inside there. The edges are nice and round at this point. We'll get our capped on tape on here and we'll try this again. Okay, we're going to give this a go again. I'm positive this time there's no debris in there, but the surface of this plastic covering isn't exactly perfect. There's probably people out there wondering why I just didn't go online and buy one of these. Well, they don't exist. The Triad radio I can't even find schematics for. You know, when I did the repair on that radio, I mentioned several times that there were no schematics, there was no information out there about the radios. I did buy one from a fellow, I think he was in Georgia, for the Traveler radio, and that was like $35 or $38. It was, with shipping, quite expensive. And I had to rework it when it got here. The whole pattern wasn't quite right. I mean, I'm not complaining. It looks great on the radio, but I've got probably the same amount of money in this at this point. And these are unobtainium. They just don't make them. This radio has, you know, there are no parts available. If you can't make them, you're done. So anyway, let's go. And this time I'm starting out with it vacuum on right away because we saw it pull up last time. You could probably get away with using painter's tape or duct tape to hold these things down. I'm getting a little carried away probably with the capped on tape, but I knew the capped on tape the adhesive wouldn't leave residue behind from the heat. And just one less thing to deal with. But again, you're going to be peeling the covering off anyway, so even if adhesive got left behind, I guess it's not a big deal. In fact, if I do this a third time, we'll try just using painter's tape and see what happens. But I have thoroughly rounded off those edges. I started out with a deburring tool, and then I went over it with some 320 sandpaper, and I've got probably a good 16th of an inch radius, about 1.5 millimeter radius. And the good sign is I'm not seeing little speckles in the face of this one, at least not yet. So I suspect that the static electricity on this coating, there was stuff stuck to the back of it, because I was pretty thorough cleaning this piece. I just didn't give this other piece a thought. I'm used to working in class 10 or at least class 100 clean rooms where that dust and dirt isn't a problem. So this is the process. I'm just going to continue this. I won't bore you with the entire heating process this time around. We'll turn it back on when everything's cooled off and we can take a look. How's that? This one I think might be a winner. What did we learn this time? When you see the plastic start to move your heat somewhere else. Don't try to encourage it to move quickly. I started to see a little bubbling down here where I overheated the plastic a little bit, and I don't know if it's just this backing or if I've actually damaged the clear sheet itself. We'll find out. This one looks good though. I don't see any marks in the face of it at all poking through. It is conforming very nicely to the mold. It fits right in there. It looks great. It's still very hot. But just to show you how tenacious this Kapton tape is, this pump, while it won't pull a full 30 inches of vacuum, it'll pull about 27 inches. And this is only 1 mil thick. Kapton tape is only 1 mil thick, but the adhesive isn't pulling back and it's not imploding. It's under a huge amount of tension right now, but it's just not even moving. It's incredible stuff. And I didn't even go with the brand name tape this time because I knew I was going to be using a lot of it. If I bought the brand name, this would be about $50 worth of tape, maybe $60 worth of tape. This was one of those no-name brands on Amazon, and it was like $18. So I had my fingers crossed, but whoever, it's probably a Chinese copy. It didn't say on it. It didn't say made in China, and it didn't say supplier from China. So it could just be maybe the patent's off on it now, and other people are copying this stuff. But that's got a cool, pretty good seal. I shut the pump off, and it took close to a minute for the vacuum to leak away. So, let's see what we've got. I think this time we have a winner. And we definitely have a process. And even if this one has some imperfections when the time comes to put it in, we know how to do another one, and it won't take all that long. But I'm pretty confident. Wow, good tight fit. Yep, no fracturing. There's some irregularities on the edge that you won't see. That's going to be inside the wood, and that's just irregularities here from where I cut it out with the scroll saw. But no cracks, no fractures. No sign of imperfections on the back. I think we have one. I think that's going to do the job. It's certainly going to look better. Now I'm seeing some modeling on the plastic here on the cover. And I think most of that, what I'm seeing, I think it's on the other side. Because I scorched the cover sheet, protective sheet a little bit. And again, when you see this thing start to move, back off with the heat gun. I'm not known as being a patient man, and I tried to hurry it along, but I know that's going to work now. I'm pretty confident that I've got something that's going to fit in there, and certainly, you know, is going to add to the appearance of that cabinet when it's finished. So that's it for this one. I'm the radio mechanic. I know someone out there is laughing at me who does vacuum forming for a living, but I think for a second attempt, this one came out all right. We'll see you soon.